Welcome to Culture Talk. This is the segment where we talk about the intersection of science, faith, and pop culture and how culturally relevant topics can be used to start conversations about your faith. I'm joined today with Jane Pantig. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are the Ratio Christi Regional Director of California and also Chapter Director.
Yeah, several schools actually.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to be talking about Gen Z. So for those who are not familiar, can you explain what is Gen Z or Generation Z?
Well, Generation Z, they're born in about 1996, 2010, so they're the generation right after millennials.
Right, so not millennials.
They are
That's
not
a misunderstanding.
millennials. They're quite different.
Right, so what are some characteristics of Gen Z?
They're very open to spirituality, open to dialogue. So we get to have lots of good conversations where I actually am a millennial. I felt like conversations were a little more shut down. Like if you didn't agree with somebody, they just didn't want to talk to you anymore.
Right, yeah, and we had a segment on that where the whole idea of disagreement, from a millennial perspective, disagreement equals judgment. So not so much with this generation, and they're more open to spirituality.
They're quite open, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now as regional director and chapter director for Ratio Christi, you get to engage with a lot of young people.
That's the best part of my job, yeah.
So what are some obstacles that you found in trying to share the Christian faith to Gen Z?
Well, I mean, part of it is they're not really asking anything about Christianity. They're kind of turned off by religion. So Christianity is very loaded for them. You know, they think about a lot of the bad things Christians have done. And so sometimes even saying you're Christian, people kind of seem to like backpedal a little bit. But once you have like a relationship and have conversations with them and kind of get to explain what Christianity is, they continue the conversation.
Yeah. So the openness then, it isn't in a way that you can just say, hi, I'm Jane, let's talk about Jesus, right?
Yeah, that's probably not an approach that I use.
Right, and you know, you're right that it is, like Christianity can be loaded for some people. So what are some approaches maybe that you think might have worked in the past but don't necessarily work now for today's generation?
I think just directly just going up to them, be like, hey, do you know Jesus? Or you want to go to Bible study? I've sat down with lots of students who have a lot to say about Christians, and those are things that they get turned off by. Kind of like almost like following them around, trying to get them to Bible study they don't like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think getting to know them and letting them know you're a Christian and you can have conversations with them. I don't think necessarily going straight to like, you want to go to church with me is the best approach, because they don't know what church is. They have a lot of questions about Christianity. So those are things or conversations you should have before you kind of ask them, you want to go to church?
Right. So that's a good reminder then. Really, we want to establish a relationship just with anyone, even if we're asking, do you want to learn about my business? You know, we don't just lead with that.
Yeah.
We lead with friendship and with conversation and with genuine interactions, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some examples of what you do and the approaches that do work?
So we're at a couple of chapters where we just have a club. We just talk about deep questions and have snacks with people. And it's amazing. People will just come into our circle and ask us what we're talking about. And we just tell them, we're here. You could talk about any kind of question you want. We go in circles with people. I mean, not circles, but in a circle with people, and kind of ask them, hey, what are the questions you have about life? And let people answer those questions in a circle. And we just kind of go back and forth. And naturally, a lot of questions about God start popping up, afterlife. So it's like, we don't even have to say, what do you think about God? It naturally goes in that direction a lot of the time.
Well, and that's a really good point, because you also talked about how people don't necessarily even know what church means.
Yeah.
So how do you unpack that, and how do you engage into conversations when there is not even a kind of a basic understanding of Christianity, or not one that's positive at least? How do you approach that?
So we don't really talk about church very much. If we do talk about church, it's like kind of a conversation where we have to talk about the bad things the church has done and explain to them that is not necessarily Christian. There are people who say they do things in the name of God, but what's more important is to see what the character of God is and what his word actually says, rather than what quote-unquote Christians have done in the name of Christianity.
Right, and that's a great reminder, because I think right now a lot of people are struggling with understanding Christianity versus Christ. And the difference.
There's a big difference, because they like to see us as hypocrites. And it's like, well, part of the reason why we are hypocrites is because we are fallen and we need Jesus, but they don't understand that part yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that maybe that vulnerability in saying we all are sinners and we're all in need of a savior. Maybe that is.
Yeah, and
good
I
way.
wouldn't even say sinners because I don't know what that means.
Right,
I'll be like,
right.
we're messed up people. Just look at our world today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great advice. Thank you so much for that. If you want to hear more from Jane, go to ratiochristi.org and search for Jane Pantig.